Welcome back. Less than 24 hours after the deadliest attack in New York City since 9/11, the President of the United States is blaming Democrats, singling out the Senate Minority Leader, Chuck Schumer, for what the President says are soft immigration policies he claims allowed the suspect entry into the United States. The 29-year-old did arrive from Uzbekistan in 2010 under what's called the Diversity Visa Lottery Program, which allows 50,000 visas from countries with low immigration rates. And in a series of tweets this morning, the President said this: "The terrorists came into our country through what is called the Diversity Visa Lottery Program, a Chuck Schumer beauty. I want merit-based. We are fighting hard for merit-based immigration, no more Democrat lottery systems. We must get tougher and smarter." Almost 3 decades ago, Senator Schumer did dream up the concept for the diversity visa program. His idea would later be signed into law as part of a bigger law by the Republican President George H.W. Bush. Today, Senator Schumer declined to comment on that program specifically, instead offering this.
The President ought to stop tweeting and start leading. The American people long for leadership, not divisiveness, not finger-pointing, not name-calling. This is a tragedy. It's less than a day after it occurred, and he can't refrain from his nasty, divisive habits.
Dana Bass joins our conversation. I guess not a surprise. It used to be, at least for 24 hours after a big event like this, the President directly attacking Chuck Schumer. At the press conference, both the mayor of New York City and the governor of New York and the police commissioner say they haven't heard from the President. They did hear from his Homeland Security advisor and from the acting Secretary of Homeland Security. Just one last point before I jump in on this one. What Republicans are saying is, sure, attack the President if you want. Maybe he should have had the good decency to wait a while. But after Vegas, after other events, Democrats come out pretty quickly calling for gun control.
Right. And we should say Senator Schumer isn't just the Senate Minority Leader, the top Democrat. He also represents the people of New York where this event happened. So it's kind of doubly jarring that both of them are going at one another, given the fact that it wasn't that long ago that that kind of thing didn't happen for several breaths after something this devastating happens. But I do think that what we are already seeing, and we're going to see even more stepped up, is the debate about vetting, which is immigration, or stepped up law enforcement and changing the approach to dealing with people who are terrorist suspects on U.S. soil. And that is really, I think, the debate that is in question, even within the Republican Party. You heard, saw the President, who seemed to have been watching another cable channel this morning and then tweeting out a lot of the same ideas about extreme vetting. And it's, as you said, it's not really clear what that means. He said that his Homeland Security Department was going to step it up. Nobody there knew what policy he was talking about or hadn't gotten the notice. But at the same time, there has been, it hasn't really been tested that much recently because you haven't had people who have been terrorist suspects who've stayed alive. The question of whether you give them American judicial rights, read them in Miranda rights and so forth, or you hold them as an enemy combatant. And those are really, really real debates that are going to go on right now.
How much does that, from a counterterrorism law enforcement standpoint, how much, if you're Chief Ramsey, or Art, if you were back in your old job, or Peter, just study these things, how much does immigration need to be part of this conversation? To be fair to Senator Schumer, it is true. The President is right. He was the person who came up with this idea, along with some other Democrats as well. But he was part of this. That's a factual statement. He was part of creating this program. Senator Schumer would also say he tried to do away with this program as part of another immigration bill that went off the rails that they tried to do years later, the so-called Gang of Eight. But how much of this, for all the finger-pointing and then for all the emphasis on local police and federal assistance, how much is the immigration system a problem, Peter, when you're trying to track people who, in this case, at least so far, they're saying he was radicalized when he got here, not when he came?
I mean, invariably, people who carry out lethal attacks in the United States are U.S. citizens or legal permanent residents. I'm not quite sure yet what the status of this guy's exact, but he seems to be here legally, obviously, under this visa program. So the problem is stopping people radicalizing here, and you can't stop the internet. These people are from all around the country. They don't necessarily fit any particular ethnic profile. It is a very tough thing. The people who know the most are peers and family members. The FBI has done a study of this, looking at a lot of cases. Peers are very reluctant to come forward. Family members are somewhat less reluctant to come forward. The people with the least useful information are strangers. They're very eager to come forward, but they don't know much. So, it's enlisting those people to say, do you see signs of radicalization? Do you see signs of plot planning, which, peers and family members may well see.
Chief Ramsey, if you're still with us, Senator Lindsey Graham was saying today that they should try this guy as an enemy combatant, and the president apparently, in tape we're going to hear in just a few moments, says he'd consider that, maybe send him to Gitmo. If this were your city and you were the chief, and obviously there's a city, state, federal issue here, especially in New York, federal, you have a death penalty involved with the federal charges there. But does this enemy combatant issue even factor into your thinking, or are you thinking, I want to try this guy right here where this happened so everybody gets to see him?
Well, I don't think it would factor into my particular thinking. I would just simply want him prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. There are certainly people that would make that determination beyond me. But I would want to see to it that he was, however way we tried him, that it was done to the fullest extent of the law. And I happen to think, and this is a case where the death penalty would be appropriate.
And Art, we're back in this conversation. Here's what the Senate Judiciary, they've got the information. He did come in 2010 on this diversity visa, become a lawful permanent resident, according to a press release from the committee. The chairman now asking the Department of Homeland Security, the State Department, sending out a wide net. Was he on any kind of a watch list? Did he come up for any kind of attention? Take us into the law enforcement aspect of that. And we're going to about 30 seconds away from this tape for the president. Is anybody who comes in on one of these things have to be watched, or can you do that?
There's just too many of them. I mean, the group that we're talking about is so large, there's not enough law enforcement officers in this country. I've worked at both DOJ and Homeland Security, and I can tell you the hardest job is being a Homeland Security investigator dealing with immigration laws that change on a regular basis. They are able to exploit these gaps that they find. We saw it in San Bernardino, we saw it here.
All right, just moments ago, the president had a cabinet meeting at the White House. He took some questions from everybody. Let's listen.
A man drove a truck into a pedestrian bike path and murdered 8 people and injured very, very seriously at least 11 more. All of America is praying and grieving for the families who lost their precious loved ones. Horrible act. Our hearts break for them, and we pledge to renew our resolve in their memory. My administration is coordinating closely between federal and local officials to investigate the attack and to further investigate this animal who did the attacking. And updates will be provided as available. I am today starting the process of terminating the diversity lottery program. I'm going to ask Congress to immediately initiate work to get rid of this program. Diversity and diversity lottery. Diversity lottery sounds nice. It's not nice. It's not good. It's not good. It hasn't been good. We've been against it. So we want to immediately work with Congress on the diversity lottery program, on terminating it, getting rid of it. We want a merit-based program where people come into our country based on merit. And we want to get rid of chain migration. This man that came in, or whatever you want to call him, brought in with him other people. And he was the point of contact, the primary point of contact for, and this is preliminarily, 23 people that came in or potentially came in with him. And that's not acceptable. So we want to get rid of chain migration. And we've wanted to do that for a long time. And I've been wanting to do it for a long time. And we'll be asking Congress to start working on it immediately. There are bills already about ending chain migration. And we have a lot of good bills in there. We're being stopped by Democrats because they're obstructionists. And honestly, they don't want to do what's right for our country. We need strength. We need resolve. We have to stop it. So we're going to get rid of this lottery program as soon as possible. He came in through the diversity program, as you know, and we're going to stop that. We're going to, as quickly as possible, get rid of chain migration and go to a merit-based system. Terrorists are constantly seeking to strike our nation, and it will require the unflinching devotion to our law enforcement, homeland security, and intelligence professionals to keep America safe. We will take all necessary steps to protect our people. and our communities and to protect our nation as a whole. We have to get much tougher, we have to get much smarter, and we have to get much less politically correct. We're so politically correct that we're afraid to do anything. And that's not only our country, that's other countries too that are having very similar problems. And we have to get tough, we have to get smart, we have to do what's right to protect our citizens. We will never waver in the defense of our beloved country, ever. And we'll never, ever forget the beautiful lives that have been taken from us. That was a horrible event, and we have to stop it, and we have to stop it cold. We also have to come up with punishment that's far quicker and far greater than the punishment these animals are getting right now. They'll go through court for years. At the end, there'll be who knows what happens. We need quick justice, and we need strong justice, much quicker and much stronger than we have right now. Because what we have right now is a joke, and it's a laughing stock. And no wonder so much of this stuff takes place. And I think I can speak for plenty of other countries, too, that are in the same situation. So, with that being said, we will be starting our cabinet meeting today. There will be a discussion that will focus on vital issues of tax cuts and tax reform. It'll be the largest tax cuts in the history of our country by far. The House is doing very well. They've taken an extra few hours, which will go into tomorrow, and they'll be announcing, and I'll probably be standing with them. We leave, as you know, for Asia. We're leaving on Friday morning. So I'll be standing with them sometime tomorrow. We'll be announcing massive tax cuts and reform. Not just tax cuts. It's tax cuts, which to me is the most important, but it'll be tax cuts and reform. We've now had 2 straight quarters of 3% or more economic growth, GDP. But our economy and our country cannot take off the way it really should, so it's really, really competitive with the rest of the world, unless we get the kind of tax cuts for our companies and our middle class, our workers, unless we get the jobs we need. It can't really take off until we get the tax cuts and reform passed. This week, the House Ways and Means Committee will unveil a historic tax plan that will create new jobs, higher wages, which hasn't happened in many years, and now it's starting to happen. I'm happy to tell you, many, many years. People making less money today than they made 20 years ago. You've heard it many times before. But it'll lead to tremendous prosperity for American families, communities, and also for our job-producing businesses. At the center of our plan are tax cuts for the working Americans. We will reduce tax rates, increase the amount of income that is taxed at zero, and increase the child tax credit, which is very important to families. We'll make the tax code simple and fair so that the vast majority of Americans can file their taxes on a single sheet of paper. We will be simplifying, it'll be called simplification, our tax code. We will restore America's competitive edge by lowering taxes on America's businesses for the first time in more than 30 years, and it'll be a historic cut. Right now, other countries are so far below us, and then when you wonder, you see all these companies leaving, one after another, they leave. That's not going to be happening. And I must tell you, I've stopped it even before this, but we're going to be stopping it in full. People are coming back. We'll be announcing very shortly, possibly right after I get back, a major company that's moving back into the United States. It's going to be a major name. People are going to be very surprised, especially the country from which they're leaving will be surprised. Under our plan, we'll go from being one of the highest taxed nations in the world to one of the lowest, meaning more jobs, more factories, more plants, more opportunities right here in America where we want them. we will reduce taxes for businesses of all sizes. I must add that we're also negotiating right now, we have my full team here, tremendously different trade deals. Our trade deals are horrible. They were made by people that, honestly, it's sad. It's very sad for our country. Every trade deal we have is disastrous. We're renegotiating our trade deals. And if we have support from Congress, we'll make trade deals that are horror shows into very good and respectable trade deals, and trade deals that are good for both countries and, in fact, many countries. But very important is that we renegotiate our trade deals. With Mexico, as an example, we have a trade deficit of $71 billion. That's NAFTA. We have trade deficits with China that are through the roof. They're so big and so bad that it's embarrassing saying what the number is, but you know what the number is. And I don't want to embarrass anybody 4 days before I land in China. But it's horrible. And you look all over the world, no matter where we do trade, we have bad trade deals. We're renegotiating those deals, as I said I would during the campaign. And that's going to be a big factor in our growth. Finally, our plan will bring back trillions of dollars from offshore. Trillions. We have, in my estimation, $4 trillion that will come pouring back into our country that will be put to work and will be spent by our companies that could never get the money back for many years. And interestingly, it's something that Republicans and Democrats have agreed on for years, bring the money back. What's not to agree? Bring the money back. And they couldn't get it done because there was a lack of leadership. They couldn't get it done. They all agreed it should be done. They couldn't get it done. So we will be bringing that money back for rebuilding America. I'll be announcing tomorrow the new head of the Federal Reserve. That'll take place sometime tomorrow afternoon. You'll be notified as to the time. I think you'll be extremely impressed by this person. As part of our push to renew our prosperity, I'll also be making a very historic trip on Friday, as I said. Our visit will take us to Japan, South Korea, China, Vietnam, the Philippines. You remember the Philippines, the last trip made by a president that turned out to be not so good, never quite got to land. And we will host meetings with world leaders across the Indo-Pacific region. I look forward to it. We're going to meet a lot of presidents and leaders of countries that have been friends and have become very good friends of mine. And we have great trade relationships, other than the fact that we are right now being taken advantage of, but I think they'll start changing them pretty quickly. Key administration officials, including Secretary Mnuchin and Gary Cohn, will be staying back from the trip to Asia to remain vigilant and making sure the tax cuts pass. So if I have any problems, I will be blaming Mnuchin and Cohn. Believe me, they'll be hearing from it. But I think they're going to do very well. We are doing very well. And the Houses, I must tell you, they've been working really hard. And they're coming up with a great plan. And the Senate's coming up with a great plan. And they're going to be put together, and something's going to come out of that that will be, I think, really, really something very special. Again, we're doing Senate, we're doing a House. It's put together, and then we have our beautiful new tax cuts and reform. And I think it'll be very special. I'm also counting on our great Vice President, Mike Pence, and the rest of my cabinet to continue to push for the tax cuts and the reform while I'm away. And
Thank you, Kate, and welcome to Inside Politics. I'm John King. Thank you for sharing your day with us. The man who allegedly mowed down people on a crowded bike path is talking to investigators as New York City now deals with a deadly attack the suspect says was inspired by ISIS.
There is no grand statement to what was done. It was the act of a coward.
President Trump immediately blames top Senate Democrat Chuck Schumer because Schumer supported the visa program that suspect used to enter the United States 7 years ago.
President Trump, where is your leadership? the contrast between President Bush's